Hi readers, welcome back. I'm SM Cornthwaite here with another book haul. I went to a couple of thrift stores this past week and picked up a whole mess of books. I'm still waiting for one from Amazon. It's a Goosebumps book, The Beast from the East. For whatever reason, it's running late. So, but I also bought another one from Amazon. It's Barnes & Noble, leather-bound book. We'll get into here shortly. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys, I have 3 books out currently. Jack the Ripper, The Man Behind the Blade, which is a true crime book. My original theory on who Jack the Ripper actually was. I go into a lot of factual, scientific evidence, a lot of psychology, neurology, stuff like that, and fit the pieces together. Also, 2 children's horror books. Hollow Screams, Ghost House, and Hollow Screams, Day of the Dolls. All 3 are available on Amazon. So first, the thrift stores I went to were LSA here in Indicator and Salvation Army. They had tons of books. I think hardbacks at LSA were 50 cents, paperbacks were 25 cents, and then at Salvation Army they were like $1.50, somewhere around there. But first things first, I got a thesaurus. As a writer, you definitely need to have a thesaurus at all times while you're writing. I had been going through using thesaurus online, but nothing really beats a paperback copy. Next, we have it looks like children's suspense, a laurel leaf suspense. This is Lois Duncan's Don't Look Behind You. I got this from our local library. They had a bunch of books for free sitting out. This is a 5th grade reading level. I like to get children's books, children's horror, children's mystery. First off, to enjoy. Second off, to really see what I can get away with for certain reading levels. It says here, how can April give up her name, her friends, her boyfriend, Steve, and everything she's ever known? April Corrigan feels like her life is over when she learns that her father has been working undercover for the FBI and the family must relocate under the Federal Witness Security Program. No one can reach them now, or can they? As I said, this is a 5th grade reading level. Copyright 1989. And this was printed, this is the 9th edition, printed in September 1990. So, pretty cool. I'm going to have to read that at some point. Next is another one from my local library. Last Rites, a forensics handwriting mystery. Fans of focused, fast-paced mysteries with smart female sleuths should get to know Claudia Rose. This is by Sheila Lowe, author of Dead Right, and it was published, first printing July 2010. Claudia's friend Kelly learns that she's an aunt when her estranged half-sister Erin shows up at her home in desperate need of help. Erin and her husband have been living quiet lives as members of the Temple of Brighter Light in an isolated compound. But now her husband and young child have disappeared, leaving behind a cryptic note with a terrifying message. Seizing an opportunity to use her special skills as a forensics handwriting expert, Claudia becomes one of the few outsiders ever to be invited inside the temple's compound. She has only a few days to uncover the truth about Kelly's missing niece before the prophecy of a secret ancient parchment can be fulfilled and a child's life is written off for good. Sounds pretty interesting. For those of you who don't know, I am attending college right now, 38 years old, decided to go back to school. I'm majoring in criminal justice, and one of my classes last semester for the fall was forensics. I'm a psychology major. At this point, I'm not sure what I'm going to do after. I would like to go and get my doctorate in psychology and I haven't yet decided if I want to go into therapy or if I want to be a forensic psychologist. I could probably do both and work both part-time as well as doing my writing. I've still got a few more years for that. I have a year and a half left for my bachelor's. Then I'm going to be working on my master's. So I can't wait to read this, see if there's anything to this. Up next is Catch Me If You Can, a true story of a real fake by Frank W. Abagnale with Stan Redding. They did do make a film out of this, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. I love the film. It's very reminiscent of kind of like Mindhunter, only for forgeries. Very good film. Can't wait to read the book. This, of course, is the actual book that the movie was based off of, not the movie adaptation book like some movies do. They'll an author will write a book, it'll get turned into a movie, and then another author will turn that movie back into a book. So I can't wait to check this out. Frank Abagnale, alias Frank Williams, Robert Conrad, Frank Adams, and Robert Maggio, was one of the most daring conmen, forgers, imposters, and escape artists in history. During his brief but notorious criminal career, Abagnale donned a pilot's uniform and co-piloted a Pan Am jet, masquerading as the supervising resident of a hospital, practiced law without a license, passed himself off as a college sociology professor, and cashed over $2.5 million in forged checks, all before he was 21. A hilarious, stranger-than-fiction account of his sumptuous life on the lam. International escapades and ingenious escapes, Catch Me If You Can is a captivating tale of deceit. If you enjoyed the movie, I really did, I can't wait to read this book. Up next is Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. I have already listened to this on Audible, and I love the film, really love the film. I was introduced to the film first, and then I listened to the audiobook. Now I plan on reading the actual. While in Paris, Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon is awakened by a phone call in the dead of the night. The elderly curator of the Louvre has been murdered inside the museum, his body covered in baffling symbols. As Langdon and gifted French cryptologist Sophie Neuve sort through the bizarre riddles, they are stunned to discover a trail of clues hidden in the works of Leonardo da Vinci, clues visible for all to see, and yet ingeniously disguised by the painter. Even more startling, the late curator was involved in the Priory of Sion, a secret society whose members include Sir Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo, and Da Vinci. And he guarded a breathtaking historical secret, unless Langdon and Neveu can decipher the labyrinthine puzzle while avoiding the faceless adversary who shadows their every move. The explosive, ancient truth will be lost forever. I really like Dan Brown. I've listened to all of his Robert Langdon books on Audible, so I can't wait to actually start reading them. Another Dan Brown is Angels and Demons. This is the prequel to Da Vinci Code. World-renowned Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon is summoned to a Swiss research facility to analyze a cryptic symbol seared into the chest of a murdered physicist. What he discovers is unimaginable, a deadly vendetta against the Catholic Church by the centuries-old underground organization, the Illuminati. In a desperate race to save the Vatican from a powerful time bomb, Langdon joins forces in Rome with the beautiful and mysterious scientist Vittoria Vetra. Together they embark on a frantic hunt through sealed crypts, dangerous catacombs, and deserted cathedrals, and into the depths of the most secretive vault on Earth, the long-forgotten Illuminati lair. Another Dan Brown novel. Can't wait to read this. As I've said, I have listened to all of his Robert Langdon novels on Audible, and I've been holding off on watching Hidden Symbol, something like that. It's a new Robert Langdon mini-series on, I want to say, Apple TV. I think it's another prequel, but I could be wrong. So, yeah. It's been a while since I've actually listened to the Audible books. So, yeah. I'll probably read this later in the year. Up next is an Anne Rice novel. Pandora, New Tales of the Vampires. This is the first of a new vampire series by Anne Rice. Here's a dust jacket. Not in that great of shape. This is what it looks like underneath. I'm not really a fan of dust jackets. I find they kind of tend to get in the way. I would much rather have, if it's going to be a hardback, have it actually printed on the cover. My favorite, though, is leather-bound by far. Anne Rice, creator of the Vampire Lestat, the Mayfair Witches, and the amazing worlds they inhabit, now gives us the first in a new series of novels linked together by the fledgling vampire David Talbot, who has set out to become the chronicler of his fellow undead. The novel opens in present-day Paris in a crowded cafe where David meets Pandora. She is 2,000 years old, a child of the millennia, the first vampire ever made by the great Marius. David persuades her to tell the story of her life. Pandora begins reluctantly at first, and then with increasing passion to recount her mesmerizing tale, which takes us through the ages, from Imperial Rome to 18th century France to 20th century Paris and New Orleans. She carries us back to her mortal girlhood in the world of Caesar Augustus, a world chronicled by Ovid and Petronius. This is where Pandora meets and falls in love with the handsome, charismatic, light-hearted, still mortal Marius. This is the Rome she is forced to flee in fear of assassination by conspirators plotting to take over the city, and we follow her to the exotic port of Antioch, where she is destined to be reunited with Marius, now immortal and haunted by his vampire nature, who will bestow on her the dark gift as they set out on the fraught and fantastic adventure of their turbulent centuries together. There's a picture of Anne Rice there. Interesting. I have actually not read any of the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. I've watched Interview with the Vampire, or is it Interview with the Vampire? I'm sorry, and Queen of the Damned. I want to say there's one other one that I'm forgetting. I digress. And I really enjoyed them. So I'm glad I managed to pick up this first book of the new series. I found this at Salvation Army on my third browse through the... Sorry, a vehicle going by. Third browse through the one of the bookcases. So it never hurts when you're at a bookstore or a thrift store to pass through each shelf a couple times, see if there's anything you missed. Up next, we have Jeff Nania's Figure 8, A Northern Lakes Mystery. This was published in 2019, so fairly recent. While on routine patrol, John Cabrelli, a decorated law enforcement officer, is dispatched to a disturbance call. The tense situation requires all of his skill and experience to get things under control. Then tragedy strikes. An innocent victim dies, and many lives are forever changed. While struggling to pull himself out of the depths of despair, John is notified that he is heir to his aunt and uncle's cabin on a lake where he spent much of his youth. His return to Wisconsin's North Woods brings healing and a sense of peace long forgotten. Little does John know that danger is waiting for him in the North Country, and he will be forced to hit it head on. And then we've got some reviews down at the bottom. Interesting. From Little Creek Press and Book Design. So this could be interesting. Maybe a summertime read. Up next, we have Nocturne, a haunting story of forbidden love by Cyree James, best-selling author of The Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen. There's the cover. I need to really get rid of these stickers. This is a LSA find. From international best-selling author Cyree James comes a haunting and deeply romantic story of forbidden love that will steal your heart and never let go. When Nicole Whitcomb's car runs off a Colorado mountain road during a blinding snowstorm, she is saved from death by a handsome, fascinating, and enigmatic stranger. Snowbound with him for days in his beautiful home high in the Rockies, she finds herself powerfully attracted to him, but there are things about him that mystify her, filling her with apprehension. Who is Michael Tyler? Why does he live alone in such a secluded spot and guard his private life so carefully? What secret or secrets is he hiding? Nicole has secrets of her own, and a past she is running from, but Michael understands her better than anyone she has ever known. Soon, she is falling as deeply in love with him as he is with her, a profoundly meaningful experience that is destined to change their lives forever. As the sexual tension between them builds, however, the clues mount up. When Nicole learns her host's terrifying secret, there is nowhere for her to run but into the blizzard raging outside, and Michael may be the only one who can save her. This is from Vanguard Press, and it was published in 2011. It looks like this is the first printing of it as well, so it's pretty cool. This might be one I'll have to read before the end of winter, actually, since it takes place in the winter. Up next, The Dead Detective, a Sam and Vera Sloan mystery by Robert L. Weiss, author of The Empty Coffin. A dead bank president, a dead detective, a deathly silence through the house. Murder is on the loose. Vera Sloan is forced into the chase of her life, trying to discover who is responsible for the death of her husband, Detective Sam Sloan, as she struggles through her grief to grasp God's purposes. Vera travels down a treacherous path leading her into a world of crime and international assassins, and to a shocking climax that makes the battle between good and evil intensely personal. Like The Empty Coffin, the first book of Robert L. Weiss's Sam and Vera Sloan mystery series, The Dead Detective follows a savvy couple putting their faith to work in the dark and dangerous world of solving crimes. I'll admit, I bought this one based solely on the cover. It looked interesting, but reading the description back here, it sounds like a Christian horror mystery. I'm not too big on Christian books. I once considered myself Christian. That is no longer the case. I don't like feeling like I'm being preached to. Looks like this was originally copyrighted. Oh no. Copyright 2002. There are scripture quotations from the Holy Bible New International Version, which was copyrighted in 1973, 1978, and 1984. I really should have read the blurb on the back before I bought this, but for 50 cents, if I don't like it, I can always donate it back to the thrift store, or I can sell it at a rummage sale or something. Up next, we have another children's book I got from one of the thrift stores. Beware, Beware, Chilling Tales, compiled by Jean Richardson. Contributors: Vivian Alcock, Peter Dickinson, Burley Doherty, Jane Gardam, Adele Garris, John Gordon, Jan Mark, Alison Prince, Jean Richardson. Just beneath the surface of daily life, an uncharted current flows, break the predictable patterns and routines of the day, and that undercurrent might just come bubbling up, and then beware. For like a funhouse mirror, the dark waters below offer a disturbing, altered reflection of the world we know. Ghostly images from a place we are not meant to see, a place where a dead man finds how quickly an eternity to relish his crime can turn into an eternal punishment. A spiteful woman destroys a blooming garden and meets a terrifying vengeance through a little girl and the power of plants. A boy's dream of a black horse embedded in a frozen waterfall breaks into the waking world to send him on a real nightmare ride. These are some of the uncanny stories about the strange and sinister world just beyond our view. Never before published, these tales by some of the best writers for young people offer a chilling warning and a thrilling view of the dark tide that surrounds us. This was published in 1987, so this could be interesting. Up next is one I had to purchase for school. It's for my class, The Ethics of War and Peace. Not the book War and Peace, but it's kind of a civics style class. Just and Unjust Wars. A Moral Argument with Historical Illustrations. 5th edition by Michael Walzer. Just and Unjust Wars forever changed the way we think about the ethics of conflict. First published in 1977 and now brought up to the present with a new preface and postscript. This classic work by political philosopher Michael Walzer examines the moral issues that arise before, during, and after the wars we fight. Reaching from the Athenian attack on Melos to the Malay massacre to Afghanistan and beyond, Walzer mines historical accounts and the testimony of participants, decision makers, and victims to explain when war is justified and what ethical limitations apply to those who wage it. So I will have to read this semester, the spring semester of 2022. Likely be tested over each chapter or every 2 chapters. This is an online class. This was originally published in 1977. This version was published in 2015. Up next is Night Games by R.L. Stine. It's a Fear Street book. Nighttime is the right time for trouble. That reminds me of my kids used to love watching PJ Masks. And part of their theme song is Nighttime is the right time to fight crime. So, that's pretty cool. Living on the edge, Diane loves sneaking out in the middle of the night. Her friends do too. They have the town all to themselves. Every night they come up with a new prank to play. But then Diane's boyfriend Lenny wants revenge on a teacher, and the pranks turn to murder. Now Diane and her friends are in too deep, much too deep, with no way out. This was one from, I want to say it's from the library. Copyright 1996 by Parachute Press. I never really got into Fear Street when I was younger. I stuck more with Goosebumps, but I know they're 2 different age groups, but you know, I just stuck with Goosebumps along the way, never really advanced into Fear Street. I started listening to a few of the audiobooks through Scribed a few months ago. Enjoyed them, so can't wait to check that out. Up next is a book I read when I was in 6th grade that I really enjoyed. It's a winner of the Newbery Award. It is a 6th grade reading level by Scott Odell, called Island of the Blue Dolphins. Very good book. I really enjoyed reading it back in the day. This This was one of those books that we had to read for school. The entire class had to read it. I believe the same year we had to read Hatchet and the River as well. And I just discovered that the author of Hatchet and the River went on to write more books in the same series, so I plan on eventually picking those up from Amazon in the near future and checking those out. I really like those books. Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell was published in 1960. This one is it looks like the 36th printing from April 1971. In the Pacific, there is an island that looks like a big fish sunning itself in the sea. Around it, blue dolphins swim, otters play, and sea elephants and seabirds abound. Once Indians also lived on the island, and when they left and sailed to the east, one young girl was left behind. This is the story of Corona, the Indian girl who lived alone for years on the island of the Blue Dolphins. Year after year, she watched one season pass into another and waited for a ship to take her away. But while she waited, she kept herself alive by building shelter, making weapons, finding food, and fighting her enemies, the wild dogs. It is not only an unusual adventure of survival, but also a tale of natural beauty and personal discovery. If you haven't read this, I highly suggest reading it. Check it out from your local library, buy it. Actually, I suggest actually buying it. It's really good. When I came across this on the free cart at my local library, I was immediately taken back to when I had to read this in school. One thing I remember strongly, one of the things she ate to keep her alive was abalone. Not really sure what exactly abalone is, but that was just one of the weird things that kind of stuck in my mind that I remember from reading this. So yeah, I highly suggest, if you haven't, give this book a try. Up next, another book from my library that was on the free cart. It's 4th grade reading level, The Kidnappers, a mystery. I didn't like Willie Groves, but I didn't hate him enough to want someone to kidnap him. Famous last words. Joey Bishop soon finds himself face to face with the kidnappers himself, as well as his archenemy, in this fast-paced urban story that will leave you panting for your next breath. This is a Jean Carl book, Aladdin paperbacks. Copyright 1998. This one was printed in December of 1999. Here's one I found from the Salvation Army. Pages are kind of dog-eared. I usually like my books to stay in really good condition. I don't like to break the spine, or crack the spine, I mean. I don't like dog-earing the pages. But being a used book from a thrift store, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. This is The Undertakers Rise of the Corpses. How do you defeat something that's already dead? By Ty Drago. Do you see the living dead? It's bad enough that Will Ritter discovers his next-door neighbor has become a walking, talking corpse. But when his assistant principal and math teacher also look like something from a horror flick, he begins to seriously question his sanity until the corpses attack. Don't call them zombies. Zombies are slow and stupid. These things aren't. To make matters worse, only a few people, like Will, can actually see them. Forced to join a ragtag army of teenage resistance fighters called the Undertakers, Will finds himself in the middle of a war against an invasion of the living dead. And in this war, the Undertakers aren't just the first line of defense. They're the only line of defense. Sounds pretty interesting. This was published in 2011. It's from Source Books Incorporated. So this is juvenile fiction. So juvenile, young adult probably. Up next, is Haunted Teachers from the Real Life Case Files. Alan Zulu, and it's from Scholastic. Has anyone ever told you about the teacher who was haunted by a ghostly visitor? Have you heard about the students whose lives were saved by a guardian ghost? Reader beware. These and more chilling tales have happened in schools like yours. This is a 5th grade reading level, appeals to 4th to 6th graders. It was published in 1996. Contents, you have The Phantom Rider, Curse of the Egyptian Bone, The Ghostly Friend, Time of Death, Dead Man's Shadow, and The Mysterious Tapper. Pretty interesting. I mainly get these children's books to help inspire me to write my Hollow Scream series. And as I said earlier, it helps me know what I can get away with for a specific age range. I have yet to find any real set of rules for the specific reading levels. So I'm base my stories and their age range off of similar stories and books I've read. Up next, Seize the Moment, Not Your Teen, The Art of Opportunity Parenting by Bill Sanders. Breathes there a parent who has not struggled with anger at a teen sneaking in past curfew or any of 100 other acts of disobedience. Bill Sanders is a real dad who is in touch with today's teens, based on his first-hand experience talking with thousands of teens and their parents each year. Sanders shares specific strategies and step-by-step suggestions for teaching your teen how to live healthy, successful, godly lives. I'm not sure on the godly part. As I said, I'm not really into being preached to when I'm reading, but I do like the psychological aspect of this book. My oldest recently turned 18. She moved out of the house last year. We had a lot of struggles with her over the years, a lot of things that really caused me to lose my temper quite a bit. So, which also led me into deciding to become a psychologist. So I'm interested to see what this book has to offer. However, in each scenario or mistake, it gives a situation, respond or react, and then God's way. You know, as I said before, I used to consider myself Christian. We had some issues with the church we went to. Very, very cliquish. So I no longer really consider myself Christian. I'm more independent-minded. I don't believe a lot of things typical Christians do. So, all right, so I had to free up some space on my phone. I was getting a notification that I'd gone the maximum length. Up next is another book I got from LSA. I'm reading currently. It is Born Standing Up by Steve Martin. I've come to realize I've always enjoyed Steve Martin's storytelling ability, but as I'm reading this, I really get the sense that I hear it in my mind being read by Steve Martin. Big Steve Martin fan, love his narrating, and I've come to realize that he's by far my favorite storyteller of all time. This is a New York Times the instant New York Times bestseller. It was copyrighted. This is the second printing. It was copyrighted in 2007. In the mid-70s, Steve Martin exploded onto the comedy scene. By 1978, he was the biggest concert draw in the history of stand-up. In 1981, he quit forever. This book is, in his own words, the story of why I did stand-up and why I walked away. At age 10, Martin started his career at Disneyland, selling guidebooks in the newly opened theme park. In the decade that followed, he worked in the Disney Magic Shop and the Birdcage Theater at Knott's Berry Farm, performing his first magic comedy act a dozen times a week. Martin illuminates the sacrifice, discipline, and originality that made him an icon, and informs his work to this day. To be this good, to perform so frequently, was isolating and lonely. It took Martin decades to reconnect with his parents and sister, and he tells that story with great tenderness. Martin also paints a portrait of his times, the era of free love and protest against the war in Vietnam, the heady irreverence of the Smothers Brothers comedy hour in the late 60s, and the transformative new voice of Saturday Night Live in the 70s. Born Standing Up is a superb testament to the sheer tenacity, focus, and daring of one of the greatest and most iconoclastic comedians of all time. I'm almost halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying it. As I said, Steve Martin is by far my favorite storyteller of all time. The way he's narrated movies like Father of the Bride 2, Only Murders in the Building, there's something about his storytelling ability that grips me. It catches my attention, it holds my attention, pulls me in, and I can lose myself in it. So, finding this on the shelf at LSA in really good condition, I have to say, was really awesome. So, I will do another video soon, reviewing this once I finish it. Up next, the final book I found in the thrift store that I've been wanting to read for a while. It's a classic, Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. It's partially leather bound, partially cloth. This one was published in 1987. This is the Reader's Digest edition. Oliver Twist was originally published in 1838. Here's the inner art. See, I really like how they did this cover. No dust jacket needed. I wish more books today actually printed on the hardback covers. There is no blurb for this book. Everyone knows what Oliver Twist is about. This also has, I'm just now discovering, the Reader's Digest excerpt of Oliver Twist. That's pretty cool. Found that in the pages. And this book is in really good condition. Yeah, can't wait to start reading this. I have placed this on my shelf with my leather-bound books simply because it is partially leather-bound. It's got a nice leather-bound spine to it. And I just, yeah, I really like the way this looks. Finally, I just received it in the mail the other day. This is a Barnes & Noble classic leather-bound edition of The Complete Sherlock Holmes. Gold leaf on the edge of the pages. As you can see on the bottom, it is worn down right here. I got this off Amazon. I've listened to the Complete Sherlock Holmes on audiobook through Audible, but here lately I've really been wanting to read it. We have one that's not in too good a condition down there. It's not a leather bound. It's a hardback with a dust jacket, and as I've said, I don't really care for dust jacket. Excuse me. I don't care for dust jackets. While I'm reading a book with a dust jacket, I always have to take it off because it just gets in the way. It flaps around. And I really don't like dust jackets. So I've really come to appreciate leather-bound books. They're beautiful. Love the gold leafing on the letters and some of the artwork here. On the back, I did have to remove the sticker, and it's still kind of sticky there. If anyone knows how to remove the sticky, the glue that gets left behind when removing a barcode label or price sticker, let me know. I would like to clean this up and get rid of that. But as you can see here, got the Hound of the Baskerville here. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This has 1,077 pages. And the case book of Sherlock Holmes is included in this. Here's the back. The inside plaid. I've always been a fan of Sherlock Holmes. I started reading Holmes when I was in 3rd grade, actually. I was one of those rare kids who liked to read well advanced, well ahead of my reading level. I read Peter Pan, the actual novel, Sherlock Holmes. I would read Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare, stuff like that. Loved Shakespeare's works. I need to start getting back into it. It's been years since I've read Shakespeare. Anything by Shakespeare. When I was in 5th grade, I had a teacher tell my mom that I had the reading level of a senior in college. So, over the years, I have stepped away from reading quite a bit. There were several years, all through high school, I very rarely read. I think the only book I really read in high school was To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm just recently starting to get back into seriously reading. Over the past year, started with audiobooks, and now I'm doing about 3 books at a time. Usually one book, I'll read a chapter in the morning, I'll read a chapter of another book in the afternoon, and a chapter of another book in the evening before bed. And in between, while I'm working out or doing household chores, I'll listen to audiobooks. So I really got into listening to audiobooks when I was doing lawn care for a living. Hours on end a day, sitting on a lawnmower, cutting grass. You can only listen to the same song so many times before it gets repetitive and boring. So, got an Audible subscription as well as Scribed subscription. And I just listen to audiobooks constantly. I think in the past, during 2021, I think I consumed anywhere between 65 to 75 books between audiobooks and actual physical books. So far, in the month of January, I've consumed 7 books. I'm in the middle of 8 and 9 now. The other book I'm reading is the Asylum novellas, which I'm almost done with. I don't really... It's getting really difficult to get into. Once I finish this, I'll be thankful. I'm forcing myself to finish it because I've already started it. And one of the audiobook I'm listening to right now is an Agatha Christie novel, Murder at the Vicarage, which really reminds me of kind of Sherlock. It reminds me of a Sherlock Holmes novel and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing. It's a Miss Marple mystery, but she doesn't really play a big role in it, so it's not really holding my attention. I'm forcing myself through it. I've got about an hour and a half left of the book through Audible. Actually, I'm listening to it on Scribed, but I'm not sure if I'll give more Agatha Christie, Miss Marple mysteries try or not, simply because I'm having difficulty getting into Murder at the Vicarage. But we'll see. I may give it another try at some point in the future. But before I leave, I wanted to remind you guys to pick up a copy of my true crime book, Jack the Ripper, The Man Behind the Blade, as well as my 2 children's horror books, Hollow Screams Day of the Dolls and Hollow Screams Ghost House. All 3 are available now on Amazon. I have been SM Cornthwaite, and this has been a Thrift Store Haul. Take care, readers.